And welcome to the show, Al Islam and Community Issues. Today we have special guest, Brother Benjamin Shabazz. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Good to see you. Today's topic, going to be probably part one, is the language of Imam Deen Mohammed. And some people know him as Wallace Muhammad. He was the seventh son of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And there's a lot of history that Imam Muhammad brings with him. And one of the things is a lot of people have not heard about him. He's one of America's best kept secrets. And for us, seeing his language and being supporters of Imam Deen Mohammed is just a fountain of not just knowledge, but wisdom. A lot of people have knowledge, but they don't have the wisdom. And in these days and time, we need more than emotion to get us through. So with that, if you want to say a short dua for our audience would be just a short prayer.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. I seek refuge with Allah from the rejected enemy, Satan the devil, with the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Ameen.
Amen. So Imam Deen Mohammed, also known as Wallace Muhammad. Malcolm X talked about him in his book, The Autobiography of Malcolm X. I don't even know where to begin with someone who came through in the ranks. His father was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who was the leader of the Nation of Islam. He was a minister under his father, but he told a story one day when he was about, I don't know how old he was, maybe 12 or 13, that his father and mother, Elijah Muhammad, and his mother, Clara Muhammad, they had to go take care of some temple business. So in other words, somebody was probably acting up in the temple. And Elijah Muhammad and Clara Muhammad had to go check on him to see what was what. So Wallace Muhammad, known at that time, was left in the house. And I guess it was, when you're in a house by yourself, and the house starts creaking and making these noises, and you don't know where these noises and everything comes from. So I guess, it concerned his mind. And so I think right there, he said a prayer to the Creator, to Allah, saying, Allah, if I'm not seeing you correctly, help me to see you correctly. Because we were, it was taught, that Allah, was a man, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. Well, in Christianity, they talk about, Jesus, who was God and a man and so forth and so on. So there's a lot of parallels there. But on that note, I'm gonna get your take on this.
Well, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
And that prayer that he made was kind of an example of showing you how Allah can protect you and guide you on through whatever situation that you're in. Because he used to say that his mother would read him the lessons, when he was a little baby, before he went to sleep. So, in other words, the doctrine of the Nation of Islam, he was all around it.
Right.
There was no way he could escape it, even as a little child. But yet and still Allah was protecting him from absorbing that and making it a nutrient. He was around it, but he wasn't feeding off of it, so to speak. So it just shows you also the power of Allah. Because you would just normally think somebody had grown up with this man and his whole family and the whole Nation of Islam was at its full force, and he was a little child growing up in that. All his brothers and sisters was part of that. What made him special? How come he didn't accept it like everybody else did? So what did you say? He was the seventh son?
I believe he was the seventh son or the seventh child.
Yeah.
One of the two.
Yeah. But he used to talk about the fact that he was always told that he was a special child,
Mm-hmm.
and that Farad Muhammad had wrote his name on the inside of one of the doors in the back or something. Wrote his name there, so every
Right.
time you open the door, you see his name.
Mm-hmm.
See? And he gave him the name Wallace,
Mm-hmm.
Deen Mohammed. But the whole point in this is that he was born for the mission.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was born to lead us, those who really believed in Allah, out of the racialized environment
Mm-hmm.
to accepting a belief in God rather than the racism, because the ideas of racism was powerful. You know, I mean, you know, the white man's the devil, you know, and then there's this whole history of Yaqub creating the devil, and then we had the bean pies and the fish and everything, and we were told that, you know, we were gods originally, and the white man was grafted up. I mean, all these lessons and things will kind of keep you grounded.
And I guess, you know, on that, it was like what Farad Muhammad used was reverse psychology, because the black people weren't, you know, called evil or devils. You know, negative, everything black was negative. So Farad just flipped the switch. He said, okay, the white man's the devil, the black man's God. So you're telling this to former slaves, and this builds up their psyche to, you know, to compete, or not necessarily to compete, but not be afraid anymore. Because, you know, people, they, you know, weren't afraid anymore. You know, hey, you know. So this method that he used, you know, was a powerful method. And I think, you know, a lot of people, you know, we may not, we kind of see what was, you know, why it was used and so forth and so on, but it had a purpose. It got a lot of people thinking about Islam. The word Islam, assalamu alaikum, you know, peace, Allah, these type of terms. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad brought this to the society. It might not have been the correct picture, but he brought it out there, and this attracted a lot of people, like Malcolm X, like Minister Farrakhan, like Muhammad Ali, like Imam Deen Mohammed. So Elijah Muhammad, it was the fruit that he bared. You know, it has had a great impact, you know, for people to at least investigate Islam, you know, for themselves.
Yeah, great impact is really the right terms, a great impact.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember he was saying one time that we were being fed Islam like you feed a baby.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we weren't being fed Islam wholeheartedly.
Right.
Like a steak and potatoes, we were being fed Islam like milk, pablum,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to a baby, what the baby could digest at that time.
Right.
And that was some of the language.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Elijah Muhammad used to tell us that the Quran was the only pure book, the only holy book,
Mm-hmm.
and to wrap it up and keep it up high in your house.
Right.
So when people came in your home, they would look up and realize that, you know, you had you had the number one book, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But we were never taught anything out of the book.
Right. Right.
So we were being taught this surface knowledge to enough that we could handle.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, terms like assalamu alaikum, we didn't know what that was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were taught things like that. Terms like prayer. You know, what do you mean prayer? You know, what? And so we knew prayer from a Christian perspective, but
Right.
not prayer from a Muslim perspective. So then the diet, you know, no pork.
Mm-hmm.
You see, and all of these things was fueled with the energy of racism.
Mm-hmm.
The white man's the devil, you know. So that explains everything. You know?
That's a whole new ball game there. Yeah.
So, like you say, it had great impact, but it was a strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I never forget this, that there's in Islam there's a saying, say, teach the people where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're gonna teach the people when you're up here and the people are down here, and you're gonna teach the people from up here, you're not gonna reach them.
Right.
But if you come down on their level, then you start teaching them, then y'all can grow together. See, and that's basically what happened. We were being taught on the level that we were at, and we were grounded in the concept of Christianity, the concept of Jesus, being a man,
And being a white man.
being a white man,
Yeah.
and God.
Yeah.
You see, so Farah Muhammad just came in and said, like you say, he said, okay, you're God.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the white man's the devil. So we already understood this devil God thing coming from, that is there men. Then here's the one that really was the trickster, the tricknology, so to speak. You know, we looked at Jesus as being God, but he was portrayed as a white man. But every black person knew secretly, oh, he's really black though, you know. He was really a black man. They just making him white. Because if you read in the Bible, they describe God as being a black man.
Right. Describe Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah, but the damaging effect of that white image was still penetrating us like acid. But we secretly said, yeah, okay, but he's really a black man, you know, like we got the upper hand here. So here comes Farad, presenting himself as God, and looking like a white man.
Exactly.
But then we were taught that, no, but he was really a black man, see.
Yeah, he was, so he could go and intermingle with them and they would not know.
Yeah, they wouldn't know what his mission was.
Yeah, yeah.
So like you say, the same strategy though.
Right, right.
So we weren't ripped away from what we believed. You know, it was like a gentle massaging.
Yeah.
You know, gentle massaging until you finally feel good. So I feel better now. You know, and it was a wonderful thing because those of us who had a heart for God, when Imam Muhammad came into office and started reading from the Quran and started talking about God was not a man, I mean, it made sense. So you're right. You know, this makes sense. But we had enough strength that we could stand up and accept it now.
Right.
And so we shared that racism. We just shared it, you know, and then we walked on as an upright human being. But those of us who were there because we hated white folks, I mean, that was our dominant appeal. You know, it was hard to leave that. You know, because we said, oh, y'all going back to y'all, what you mean? You know, we going through all these changes and you just gonna cut that off like that? So it's hard for them to leave that. You know, no, Yaqub, devil, the white man's the devil. Yeah, we gods. And they're still back there, stuck. And the way I see it is, you remember Terminator 2? When they had the Terminator come from the future and he could turn into like mercury or something,
Right,
be a
right,
liquid
yeah,
that he would
yeah,
stand
yeah.
up as a grown man.
Right.
So when I think he was locked up or something, he was trying to get out of jail. And he
Get out
walked
the
of
bars,
jail.
yeah.
Yeah, the bars.
Yeah.
And he had a weapon on him or something
Yeah.
that wasn't part of him, and he couldn't get out.
Yeah.
Because it just kept getting stuck,
going out,
stuck. And that's how I see this thing, because as easy as it is for me to understand, for you to understand, when you try to explain it to someone that's in the nation now, they can't understand it. And I have to say that back in the day, I probably wouldn't have understood it. You know, because it was just too much like Christianity all over again.
Yeah.
I couldn't have understood. No, you know, no. You know, black man is God. You know?
Well, like, you know, I think when you say that white man is a devil, I think you're giving them too much credit, because all humanity is, you know, under the influence. You know, some parts of humanity think they're superior than others, and others have an inferiority complex. So it's like this satanic thing got both sides. One side think that I'm superior, you know, if I'm, you know, Caucasian. The other one, well, you know, I feel inferior, you know, because I was put in slavery, or I don't look like the image of God, and so forth and so on. So it's in the language. So we're talking about language. One of the things that Imam Muhammad talked about was man means mind. So you want to expand on that a little bit on that?
Yeah, that's a beautiful understanding to discuss when he says man means mind. Because even today, well, most people think, I know we was raised up understanding that man meant male, testosterone,
Right.
force, power. You know, I'll knock you out, sucker. You know, that I'm a man. you know, all that kind of stuff. And the mind was never being developed. You know, so people could fall prey to all kind of tricks and spells and things because their mind wasn't sharp. It was just the fact that I'm a man. And then not only that, he said, woman, womb of mine. You know, so you think about that. Wow, here's the child is given to the mother first. Not only does she feed him from her body, but she feeds him mentally. You know, her thoughts and her ideas and the ways and the mannerisms, the child is looking at that as this is what it is, you see. So she actually develops the mind if she know what she's supposed to be doing. You know, she watching TV all day, you know, she's not doing nothing for that child, you know. So he introduced that language. Man means mind. And I know for a fact, a whole lot of people went back to school. Got their degrees, you know, that were just out in the street acting stupid. They got their degrees and they became successful, and they raised families that were intelligent, and education was a priority in their life. You see, so he changed that whole scenario around. Man means mind.
Okay, very good. Talking about that, on another part of the language, remove all racial images from worship. So we kind of touched on that earlier, but if you portray a particular race, and we should have brought out the Muslim Journal and read that little part, but you portray a particular race as God, then what does that say about all the other races? You know, what does that say? Especially, like say in the Bible, it says something else that doesn't look like that. And, you know, one of the stories, you know, that when they were looking for supposedly Christ Jesus, you know, they were looking for him. Well, if he had blonde hair and blue eyes, they could have found him real easy as a child, being in the Middle East, you know, because that had been something that would have been, you know, a little bit different, you know. But, you know, it says in the Bible, you know, not to worship images. And, you know, you see this image all over, and then, you know, you mention it to people, you know, hopefully in an intelligent way. And, you know, they'll argue and say, well, this is Jesus and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, there's no, you know, evidence that was that particular person. It's just somebody drew it. You know, some people say it was, you know, what was it?
Michelangelo.
Yeah, his cousin, nephew, something?
Something like that.
Something like that. So, but then your book says, all the books, the Torah, the Quran, so forth, you know, says, you know, don't worship images, you know. So, and that's one of the biggest problems, I think, in racism, because it's psychological, you know.
Psychological, that's it right there. It's
Yeah.
psychological. It's what rules the human is the mind. So if you can plant a message in the human's mind, no matter what they say out their mouth, their mind is governing what they do. If you see that image, it's going into your mind.
Yeah, I mean, like if the son is quote white, then the daddy got to be quote white.
So if Jesus is the Son of God and Jesus is white, that means God is
white.
White.
Yeah.
I mean, a little child can figure that out. You don't have to go to get a degree to figure that out.
Definitely. That another thing, well, talking about that, is one of the things that the Quran talks about the thinking man and the thinking woman. So if we look at some of these Islamic societies, you would think that they don't want the women to think, be around, participate, or anything else.
It's heartbreaking.
It is. It is.
It's heartbreaking. You know, I hate to say it, put it like this, but the social engineers have been trying to craft something to decimate the power of Islam and bring it down from its heights.
Mm-hmm.
So they slowly infiltrated with ideas that are not Islamic. And subjecting the women is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Chauvinism. You see a lot of chauvinism in this so-called Muslim countries. And chauvinism was a serious issue pre-Islam. It was so serious that the man, if he had a baby child, his wife had a baby and it was a female,
Mm-hmm.
he was so ashamed and so embarrassed that he would take that child and bury her alive.
Mm.
Now, what kind of sickness is that?
Yeah.
That's some deep sickness right
Mhm.
there. And so Islam came along to turn that whole thing around. I remember the Prophet said that if you want to go to paradise, educate 2 girls.
Wait a minute. The Prophet said that?
The Prophet
The
said
Prophet said that?
you want to go to paradise, educate 2 girls.
And then you got these people who won't let the women go to schools.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I wanted to say that Islam has been Christianized, but then I don't want to use that term.
Mm-hmm.
But Islam, true Islam, has been infiltrated and weakened, and then all these foreign ideas come in
Mm-hmm.
under the banner of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
Because anytime you go into any situation and you see the woman subjected, you know something wrong right there.
Yeah.
You know, she don't have her freedom. She virtually put in the position of a slave,
Mm-hmm.
slave of the husband. And I see it in a lot of places. Like there's some places women can't even go to the masjid. They have to stay home.
Mm.
The man is supposed to come back and teach them what the Imam said at the khutbah. You know, yeah, it's bad news. It's bad news. But when you study Islam for yourself, and you don't follow someone's interpretation of it,
Mm-hmm.
you study for yourself and use your own common sense, you come up with this is a beautiful religion.
Mm-hmm.
This is a beautiful religion. You know, it encourages women to be educated. It encourages women, because you study, for instance, the example of some of the women in Islam, like the Prophet's wife, for example. You know, she was a business lady.
Yeah, they never talk about her much.
Oh, no. She was a businesswoman.
Mm-hmm.
And he was married to her when he was a young man, 25 years old. And he stayed married to her, one wife now,
Mm-hmm.
until he was 40. No, a little bit after 40. But during that time when a lot of young people want to talk about polygamy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I could have more than one woman. But if you follow Prophet Muhammad, no. He had one woman. You know, he wasn't out there philandering around,
Mm-hmm.
talking about I can marry more than one woman, you know. So like I say, when you do self-study, you see a lot of this stuff is I would say, the mentality of the devil has used our ego and selfish desires and manufactured another religion
Mm-hmm.
called Islam. And anytime you go in any situation, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Judaism, any situation, even not a religious situation, and you see one sex being oppressed by the other,
Mm-hmm.
something wrong.
Something wrong. Something wrong. Something wrong. We got about 3.5 minutes. One of the things that Imam Deen Mohammed is to give his, what would be his, not opinion, but what would
Tafsir.
tafsir on the Quran and the stories in the Quran. And I know, from reading the Quran, sometimes you think, well, that just happened in the past and these stories there and they're not relevant and stuff of this nature. But then some of the stories and then some of the scientific things that are in the Quran were 1,400 years ago, of how, the orbit, how orbits and stuff like this, all the different scientific things that are in the Quran. And then the other stories, he gave his tafsir on it that, okay, I can see some relevance in it. I can apply this today. This same thing that was bothering people back thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, it's still here today. It's just in a different form, but it's still there. So those stories, he brought out a lot of, information. I remember one time he said a long time ago, when he first took leadership, he says, I'm going to take you all into some deep waters. I don't know if you remember that. He said some deep waters. Wasn't for shallow thinking, but some deep waters. And it makes so much sense, the things that he has brought us. And because, some people call him America's Imam, because I don't see any leadership from the East back in the Middle East or, in different countries, coming to lift us up, They didn't care about us in the past, so with that, I don't know if you want to wrap it up real quick.
Nobody came for us, so Allah raised up somebody for us.
Thank you very much. Exactly. So there's much more to talk about. We'll have to do a part 2 on it and get into some more of the language and some more of the history. With that, brother, I thank you very much. Thank our listening audience. Thank you very much. And peace and prayers.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.